What's up everybody, Anime X here, and in this video I'll be following up my first part of my What If Gohan Kept Training. And since I've been asking you guys if you wanted a follow-up to this video, I've gotten an overwhelming amount of people saying that they want this, and it's time to come out with that part 2. I know it's been quite a long time since I actually put out that part 1, but if you haven't seen the first part of this, it would definitely help if you had seen it, because I go into depth on the details of how I think this affects certain events in the Dragon Ball timeline. And if you want to see that, I'll put a link up to that so you can watch it and come back to this. But if you don't want to go through part 1 right now and you just want to see this video, don't worry, I will be doing a quick recap of my last video. So without further ado, let's get started. So in the last video, I talked about Gohan's training over the 7 years, and I talked about how he'd be training with Piccolo for the most of the time, and Vegeta somewhat, to greatly boost his power, because he knows that the way to enforce peace is to have strength to protect that peace. And Gohan would also have a greater desire to become stronger, because in this universe, his transformation into the Super Saiyan 2 permanently altered Gohan's emotions and outlook towards fighting, although very slightly. Because he would be much more confident in his abilities, he wouldn't be, he would not be as timid as he usually is in the regular series, but yet he would not be arrogant, because he knows the consequences of that arrogance. In this universe, he trains Goten instead of Chi-Chi making it, so that Goten is far stronger than that. As far as the tournament goes, everything on the adult side goes the same, with Gohan still facing Kibito and getting his power stolen, although it isn't even a fraction of Gohan's true power. Also, when the Z fighters are up against Baodi's little troop of fighters in front of him, they all get destroyed, with Vegeta realizing that Goku has Super Saiyan 2 like he did in the original, except in this incarnation of the story, Vegeta has tapped into this power as well, and is not really upset or angry about the fact that Kakarot has the same form as him. In fact, he's actually happy that Goku would be able to challenge him as much as Vegeta expected him to. Gohan ends up defeating Dabura casually in this version, and also Gohan seemingly crushes the threat of Majin Buu in his Super Saiyan 2 form, and then we leave off with Vegeta and Goku getting ready to see who is stronger. So like I just said, Vegeta and Goku would be preparing to square off with each other to see who is the superior Saiyan, and to see who had been training harder over that 7-year time skip. And as soon as Gohan comes to see what Goku and Vegeta are doing, they start going at each other, although only in base form at first. And while they are fighting, Goku and Vegeta are talking about the intense training that they did over the 7 years. Goku talking about how hard Otherworld training is, and Vegeta reluctantly saying that Gohan was a somewhat decent training partner, which may have helped him attain the power to beat Goku. And with this sentence being said, they both transform into Super Saiyan, and the fight remaining fairly even. And the fight remains fairly even, with neither Goku nor Vegeta gaining the upper hand. But the difference between this fight and the fight between them in the original is the stakes are not nearly as high, because them taking damage does not fuel Majin Buu's power. And and Vegeta is not angry at Goku, or he doesn't envy Goku's power, because he sees himself as Goku's equal, or he even sees Goku as inferior to him in terms of power. And Vegeta doesn't have to rely on anyone else's power in order to match Goku's. And realizing that neither of them are going to fall back, or neither of them are going full power, Vegeta tells Goku to stop messing around and show him his true power. And with that being said, Vegeta punches Goku into a mountain, telling him to stop holding back. After this, Goku proceeds to turn into a Super Saiyan 2, and then Goku starts to show a tiny bit of arrogance, since he isn't aware that Vegeta has this same power. Goku says that Vegeta might as well give up, since there isn't any way to close the gap, and this is where Goku's first mistake happens. And it happens when Vegeta rushes at Goku, catching him off guard and pummeling him the same way, pummeling Goku, saying that he should remember his place as inferior to him and as a low-class warrior, gives him a solid gut punch that knocks Goku to the ground hard. This is all after Vegeta transformed into a Super Saiyan 2, by the way. Meanwhile, while all the action is happening, Goten and Trunks are watching this spectacle in awe, their eyes barely able to keep up with the movement of Goku and Vegeta. And while those two are watching, they see Vegeta's rage, which he knocked Goku around with. And although I say that Vegeta is raging, it is more of Vegeta defending his pride and his honor, with Goku laying on the ground. Vegeta walks up to Kakarot, saying that if he doesn't use his full power, he'll never forgive him. And then Vegeta says, if you need a reason to expend more power, I'll give you one. And with this, Vegeta starts powering up, screaming. And while this is happening, Gohan realizes that Vegeta is attempting to do what Vegeta is attempting to do, and warns him against it because of the strain that it will put on Vegeta's body. But Gohan already knows that once Vegeta has determined that he's going to use his power, there's nothing that's going to stop him from it. And After this, he continues to power up, screaming, and he tries to use his power to force Goku to use more power. And then, with a bright flash of light, spreads throughout the entire planet. And after that light flashes, Vegeta stands in his most powerful form. Gohan calls out to Vegeta, saying that he doesn't have much time in that form before his power runs out. And then Vegeta tells him to shut up and let them fight. Goku struggles to get up and then looks at Vegeta's new form, smiles and said, "Wow, Vegeta, that's some serious power you got there. Looks like I have to respond." And with that, Goku decides that he's going to go Super Saiyan 3, despite the consequences that he's clearly aware of, despite King Kai yelling in his ear, and despite the warnings that Baba gave him. And he decides he wants to fight Vegeta in his true and most powerful form. And then Goku starts to scream. And he screams, and he screams, and he screams for what seems like minutes, and it actually is minutes. Goku is actually bent over screaming for minutes on end, powering up relentlessly to get to his full power. And he keeps screaming and powering up in order to turn into a Super Saiyan 3. And as soon as Goku transforms, he and Vegeta clash fists and start going at full power. And by this point, Goten and Trunks' jaws are already on the ground because of the power that their fathers have. And they ask Gohan if he can keep up with the battle, and if his eyes can keep up with the battle, and he just nods. And then Goten asks Gohan a seemingly dumb question and asks if Gohan is as strong as them. And before Gohan can give his answer, Trunks says that there is no way that anyone can match those two in power. And as those three are talking, Vegeta and Goku are going at each other with all their power, both of them realizing that they are well past the limit of their transformation. So for the deciding blow, they charge at each other, and then after they clash, they both fall to the ground with a solid thud, both of them unable to move in their base forms. And then they both pass out, unconscious from their intense battle. Hours after the fight, Vegeta and Goku arise. After their fight, Baba appears and lets Goku know that because he decided to use Super Saiyan 3 and he wasted a lot of his time being unconscious, he was unable to spend a lot of time on Earth. And even though he had only been on Earth for what seems like a few hours prior to transforming, Baba says that Goku now only has 3 hours until he has to go back to Otherworld for good. And Goku, hearing this, does something a little out of character for him. Instead of doing something power related or something that has to do with fighting or challenging his limits, as soon as he hears this, that he doesn't have much time left on Earth, he first heals himself and Vegeta by quickly fetching a few senzu beans, using instant transmission of course, and then after this, he puts his finger in his forehead, preparing to use instant transmission. But before he does, Vegeta asks him where he is going, and the fight isn't settled. And Goku responds saying that he is going to spend the last few hours on Earth with his family and friends, and says farewell to Vegeta, calls him his friend, and then disappears. But right before he goes, he says he'll be waiting for Vegeta in Otherworld, ready to fight him for all of eternity. And with this, he grabs Goten and Gohan's hand, and teleports to where Chi-Chi, Bulma, and the rest of his friends are. And for the last few hours, Goku says his farewells, and talks with his friends for what he thinks is his last time he'll ever see them. When the time really starts to wind down, he only talks to Chi-Chi and Goten, saying that he was sorry that he wasn't there for Goten, and that he's proud of Chi-Chi for raising such a powerful and good-hearted young warrior. And before Goku leaves for Otherworld, he looks Gohan up and down, brings him in for a hug, and says that he's proud of him. He knows that Gohan is already a greater warrior than he ever will be, and he tells Gohan that he is the new defender of Earth. And as his final words to Gohan, he says to take care of the planet for him. Now, one person that you may think I forgot about is the Supreme Kai, along with Kibito, but this is where they come in. Before Baba sends Goku back to Otherworld, the Supreme Kai says that he wants to take Goku on a detour before he goes to Otherworld for good. And with that, Kibito and the Supreme Kai use Kai Kai to teleport away, leaving the rest of Goku's friends and family on Earth, wondering if they'll ever see him again. Almost as soon as Goku's tearful goodbye is over, Gohan senses a strange presence very far off in the distance. But he brushes this off because he's distracted from the words of his father and doesn't really pay any attention to this, soon forgetting about this presence. None of the other Z-Fighters are aware of it, but the threat of Majin Buu is far from over, and may be getting even worse, because now Buu is on the loose with no one even knowing that he's still a threat, and fusion has not been taught to Goten or Trunks. And he's not only a threat to the planet, but the entire universe itself, because no one seemingly knows about the threat that Buu is still alive, except for the Supreme Kai, who once they arrive at the realm of the Kais, explain that even though Gohan seemingly obliterated Buu, he had regenerated during the fight between Vegeta and Goku, and he'd been watching and studying them and growing stronger just from watching the two Saiyans fight. After hearing this, Goku just says offhandedly that Gohan can handle any threat that comes to the Earth, including Majin Buu, and just tells Supreme Kai not to worry. Supreme Kai continues to try to reason with Goku, saying that there's no way on Earth that Gohan would be able to handle a threat as big as Majin Buu, but Goku is not hearing it. He trusts his son completely and doesn't think that anybody can overtake him. Supreme Kai realizes that Goku won't interfere in the affairs of Earth until he sees Buu's power for himself. And to minimize the destruction of the Earth when that happens, the Supreme Kai decides to try to train Goku to increase his power. And the most efficient way to get stronger, in his opinion, is to use a Z-Sword, which he thinks Goku may be able to lift after seeing his Super Saiyan 3 form, and convinces Goku that if he lifts that sword out of the rock he trains with it, his power will increase dramatically. Goku, still being a fighter and a Saiyan at heart, relishes the opportunity to get stronger and prepares to lift the Z-Sword from its resting place. And that, everybody, is where I'm going to leave this part 2 off. I feel like we covered some pretty important plot points in this part of the What If, and I really enjoy making these type of episodes for the What If Gohan Train series. And if you guys know the deal, I'm sorry. If you want another part of this, either let me know in the comments or you can vote in the polls that I already have set up in this video. And if you follow me on Instagram or follow me on or like join my Discord or any stuff like that, you already know that I'm gonna be putting up polls asking whether or not you want another part to this video. Also, for all of you that made it to the end of the video, I would just like to thank you guys. And if you like the video and like my content in general, consider subscribing and hitting the bell if you haven't already done so you don't miss when I eventually put out a part 3 to this series. And as always, guys, this is Anime X, signing off.